The mayor said you could put a baseball field on it. It would be heated. They've got a great baseball park with plenty of parking out in Stetson Hills. Leave it alone. It's working. It's passing EPA standards. I visited the Newman folks. They've got technology to get rid of that little bit of pollution. A lot of people come into this city thinks it's smoke, it's steam, and so it's working. It's working in other cities. Commerce in other cities, they have power plants. We have some of the lowest rates. We have low sulfur coal. We bring it down, and our rates are very low, so leave Drake alone. We have bigger issues in the city than messing with Drake Power Plant.
Again, you own utilities. The people own it. You decide what happens with it. It's not going to be up to a politician. It's going to be up to you. You decide what happens with the Drake power plant. But as far as I'm concerned, I say, why would you sell an asset like that? If I owned it, I wouldn't sell it. And since I do own part of it, you know, 1/100,000th of it, no, I don't vote in favor of selling it at all. No, I plan on using it as an asset for the betterment of the people of Colorado Springs. That's what I want to do with it. Thank you.
Drake Power Plant is essential to the power needs of the city of Colorado Springs. It handles a third of the power generation capacity that we have on any given day. It's usually handling about half the base load. And what that means is it's putting out the lowest kilowatt cost per hour of any other source that's out there right now. It gives us the ability to sell additional energy across the grid to other agencies that need it. Other companies out there, when they need power, they go out in the grid to look for it, and we can sell ours at cheaper. So we need to keep it. I've been out the Newman Center. I've seen the equipment out on the floor ready for testing. It's got a good system. We can keep it in compliance with EPA regulations for years to come, and we need to keep it in place and not go out there and try to put ourselves in a position of having to buy power across the grids at double or triple what we're paying right now. Thank you.
All right, this question is specifically for Ed, but for the other two, I will modify it so you guys can also chime in on the subject. Ed, the question says, in a previous forum, you mentioned cutting the CSU budget by 10%. I would like to expand your thoughts on that issue.
Yeah, well, why specifically me? But here's the thing, folks. You've heard me in the past. The utilities budget is $1 billion. As a businessman, when things are tough, if you can't cut 10% from that budget, then we've got the wrong people running it. I'm not talking about the employees. I'm talking about the over 100 executives that make more than the mayor and the governor. We could take that 10%. That would save us $100 million to go towards stormwater and infrastructure. So I'm not beating up on utilities. I'm simply saying there's a lot of waste in the PR department. When they have an exclusive, why do we need to get all that stuff in the mail? We can cut that staff as well. But mostly I'm addressing the executives. That's a honeypot for executives, not for the taxpayers right now.
So, gentlemen, if you would like to expand your thoughts on CSU and City Council's role with CSU, you can also address budget issues if you'd like.
Well, I think the problem with CSU is that it's very, very, covert. We really don't know what goes on there. What we do know is that a few years ago, they cut the salaries as far as pay per performance from their employees and the incentive awards for their employees, and yet the utilities CEO received a $61,000 bonus. So the people in leadership received bonuses, while the rank and file, they basically said, no, you don't get any kind of bonus. So I don't really believe that that's the way in which we need to run our utilities, but how many people know that? Even though it was broadcast on the news, how many people really know that? So I think it should be a lot more transparency as far as our CSU is concerned. I really do believe that. I think there's a lot more things going on than what we believe, and we need to know about it because we own the utilities. Thank you.
Yeah, we do own the utilities, and the utility board is the council. So far as transparency, there's complete transparency to the members of the board, and it's our responsibility from the board to turn that around. But let me run down some of those numbers here. When you start taking a $1 billion budget and you start cracking out 10% of that, there's not a lot of places you can actually take it out before you start causing some problems. 26% of that, or $260 million, is fuel. You can't cut that. That's what the price of the fuel is. 13% is debt serviced. You can't cut that. There's 5% of that, which is other. Well, you can probably get something out of that. And then there's the payment in lieu of taxes. So you're not going to cut the payment that they give in lieu of taxes in order to turn around and get more money out of it. That's kind of double accounting. It works for the feds, but not for us. There's only about, $560 million out of that budget that you can actually go in there and take something out of. And you can't take $100 million out of that. You can get something out of it, perhaps. Not that much.
All right, this question is for all of you. In light of the amount set aside for litigation in 2013 city budget, $27 million, do you see a conflict with other needs, such as bus services, and given the concerns regarding tax-related spending? Sure. In light of the amount set aside for litigation in 2013 city budget, the $27 million that's set aside for litigation, do you see a conflict with other needs, such as bus services, and given the concerns regarding tax-related spending?
Unfortunately, litigation does happen. So, you take the money out, you use it for other things, and then you hit with the bill, and you fall short. We need to come up with a zero balance each and every year. So that's just an estimate to $27 million. It could be up, it could be down. Hopefully it will be down. But that's something that we cannot predict in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So for right now, no, I think it has to stay the same. And if we don't use that, then of course we can use it for other services that we desperately need for the cities. But just to get into that right now, I think that would be foolish. Thank you.
Yeah, you've got a reserve set aside for litigation. I don't think you can ignore that. I mean, the fact is, if you're being sued, you got to fight it in court. It would be nice to spend that on other things, but that's just kind of a fact of life. If you lose, you're going to lose big if you don't fight it. That kind of brings up the point here. The city right now is facing some pretty horrendous suits. One of them being the para issue over the hospital. That's a little time bomb that's ready to go off with a megaton level. It could undermine all the benefit we got out of selling the hospital. And that's a pretty good lesson hanging out there too before anybody starts thinking of selling or leasing utilities. You take those employees out of para, you're going to have another time bomb waiting to go off. So you may lose everything. And if you don't fight it, you'll definitely lose it. I don't see any way around that.
Wow, $27 million for legal fees? My goodness, that's worse than Washington, D.C., isn't it? Look, if we had full transparency at City Hall, and we had the council and the mayor doing his job, and I hope there's no lawyers here. I'm not beating up on lawyers, but 27 lawyers, did you say, or 27 million set aside for litigation in Colorado Springs, Colorado? Again, what are the lawsuits all about? Is it about para? Is it Memorial Hospital? It's like Obamacare. You've got to pass it before you read it. I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't realize the expense was so high or that we had that much money set aside. There shouldn't be litigation like that against the Colorado Springs. And again, if we're doing our job, we should stay out of those lawsuits.
I do know that in the past, we've done several stories on the top 10 lawsuits against the city every year, and generally the top 5 have involved Memorial Hospital. So obviously that player is now out of play. All right, I'm going to give you guys a chance for a 1-minute closing statement for each of you, and then we will close out this session. Who would like to go first? All right, Ed's going to go first.
I heard a previous young man say that he wish he could get younger people on council. I remember President Reagan saying, I won't talk about your inexperience if you don't talk about my age. I'm still refereeing high school soccer at age 76. I've got the time and energy to do this. I love this city. I've been here a long time. The city's been good to me and my family. I run a great business, turn it over to my son, and I want to pay back this community. I want full transparency at the city. What you'll get from me is honesty and integrity. That's how I've conducted my life. If you don't believe me, just ask my grandchildren and my wife of 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much for coming out. I really believe that it's time for citizens just, such as yourself and myself to not step aside, but to step up into our governance and make a difference. You know, I'm conservative. I'm going to vote conservative. I've been married for 36 years, 2 kids, 5 grandchildren. I'm a retiree from the United States Postal Service. I've ran my office with budgets and things of that nature, and I will work hard for you. I will work hard for you, and I will ensure that our fair city reach out into this bright new future. My goal is to give just our citizens of District 6 hope for a better day. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks for coming out. I'm Andy Pico. I'm running for City Council. I think the issues that we have facing the city are tremendous. They're very complex. It's going to take a lot of hard work and deep research to go into that. I bring to this 21 years of active duty in the U.S. Navy, work on high-level staffs on complex problems, a lot of budgeting involved in that. I've worked 16 years in the defense industry here in this town, working complex projects. I've worked in the nonprofit area in town on charities. I bring a lot of political activism as well. I've been working within the parties, within the conservative movement for a long time. I have a record to run on, and that record is for your benefit. And I'm going to put that work to you and bring that sort of experience and knowledge to work on City Council on your behalf. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for your time. You guys may be excused, and at this point we're going to take a quick 15-minute intermission. We will convene in about 15 minutes with District 2.
Okay, so now just go, keep it for a while. Then close. Okay. I'm kidding. 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock. She gets her one.
Going great. I'm trying. It never stops.
You best believe
Yeah, it never stops. Unfortunately, we're playing big time.
Oh, yeah.
I see her every Wednesday morning.
It's even worse now with this doggone.
Al, I have a question. Al, something came out in a newspaper today that said you're a Democrat.
See? That's what we were doing.
You are? Julia sent me an email today, the president of my group, Colorado Springs Republican Women. She said, Lana, you invited Al to our forum, and he's a Democrat. I said, no, he's not. You know where I saw it? The email that I got. Stupid rumors. It's right here. I'll show you. I'm going to show you the email right now where she got it from. And guess what? That's weird, Al. She's not. She's not. Yeah, same as just saw this info in the GOP email. District 5, Central Precinct 5, Alabama. So then this is what I sent back to her. He's a Republican. So I fixed it. Well, I sent that to her, but I don't know where she got it. Let me go tell my nurse.
It will be in our
It was going real good, and then this popped up. Nothing. I mean, just I was.
usually you're okay just on these are the two big ones.
But no, it's been going great, and then that thing just popped up. I didn't know.
Okay, you just tried to change like that or something.
I mean, if I did, it was unintentional, but it's been going real good.
Because they're not anywhere.
There's no
Well, no, it's the best. I hope it's the best because if it's your
They're trying to sabotage you. I'm sending it to him right now. And he's going to contact. I don't know.
If you will let me know the URL.
I know you. I knew that better than that. Julia sent me that I was talking about.
Send that to me. I can be sure that both the Business Journal and the Independent have it on their website. So where to go. And we wouldn't mind being able to have it on our website. Well, we've been running through the logos too. But we're happy to link to it. Okay, I don't think she needs the logos in this. But we've been trying to get all the other. It's okay because the Business Journal was not directly a sponsor tonight. Okay. But I'm just telling you that we'll be happy to help get the word out there. Because we have an email blast every morning. With breaking news. Great. You can just give me an email. I'll put it up tonight and get you URL so I have your email. Yep. Okay. I meant to change. This is the cheaper one. It's a little less. I meant to change and I just
I know. Yep, that's
I mean, these are set at like 1, 2, the knobs and here's the go. They go to 8. When I do it at your board, they're like that 6.5%. So, well, I usually don't look at the
All right, folks, at this time, we'll go ahead and come together again and continue forward.
Okay, so I'll come back and then I will. Oh, I will.
Obviously, next up, we're going to talk about District 2. And the media panelist for this district is Andrea Chalfin with KRCC.
Thanks, Joe. And thanks, everyone, for coming again. District 2 is, of course, in the north central portion of Colorado Springs. Is that right? They changed, so forgive me. I'm still getting used to it. I've been told that the incumbent, Angela Dugan, is not able to be here. Challenger Joel Miller is also not able to be here. Bill Murray is here, and Angela Dugan's campaign manager, Allison Vanderveen, will speak for Angela Dugan. Because only one official candidate is here, we are just going to give each person 2 minutes to speak, and then we will move right on into District 1. So why don't we begin? Who would like to begin? Angela Vanderveen, who is the campaign manager for Angela Dugan.
Actually, it's Alyssa Vanderveen, but that's okay. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, Angela was unable to attend tonight. She had every intention to be here, but wasn't able to make it. But let me tell you a little bit about what I know about Angela. I've known Angela for 4 years now, and she is principled and unwavering. She doesn't bow to political winds. She always listens, and it doesn't matter what side you're on. She does. She will sit down with anybody and hear them out and hear their concerns and makes those decisions on that information. She will always tell you where she stands. I think that's different in an elected official, somebody who will actually tell you what they think and what they feel. She's passionate. She's passionate about the city and making this a better place to live. It's already a great place to live, and she believes in making it better and someplace that her daughters will want to stay and that they will have jobs and places to live and can raise their families. She believes in bringing common sense solutions to City Council and finding ways to do more with less of your precious taxpayer dollars, because that's what they are, and council needs to be responsible in how they spend those dollars, which means that government has to be held accountable for the spending, and when you do spend government dollars, those should be spent on core services, and that's police, fire, infrastructure, our roads and bridges, and making sure that this is a safe place to live. and then being a magnet for private business and making us the most business-friendly city in the United States. And we should be innovative in our thinking, finding new and different ways to do things so that we are successful and people want to live here. So I am asking you, if you live in District 2, to please mark your ballot for Angela Dugan as your city council person. Thank you.
And candidate Bill Murray.
Well, I stand up when I talk most of the time. Now, the reason Angela's not here this evening, very precisely, is because she didn't want to face a hostile crowd. And that's the honest answer. The honest answer is, if you listen to the rhetoric from a lot of these politicians, it's very canned. It's not designed to be inclusive, which is what this whole audience is trying to do, is become inclusive. It's very important that the politician listen, not the politician, but the person elected, okay, listen to the population. I don't care which side you're on, you have an obligation to listen to everyone. Now, our glass isn't half full or half empty, but there are a lot of things we can do to make it fuller. And I think what we should do is strive to go towards a medical complex scenario downtown. We don't need to sell the utilities, okay? We need to concentrate on the promises that UCH has given us to build a doctor's hospital. We don't need to listen to politicians who tell us half-truths. We don't need to listen to politicians who take money from franchises of the city. Now, for your information's sake, I have filed a formal ethics complaint against Angela Dugan for taking money from Comcast Cable, $1,000, while she was a sitting council person, and for voting twice to stop CenturyLink from coming into this city. Now, I consider that unethical. And you need to hold her accountable for these kind of things. And you need to be very careful in listening to the rhetoric when she talks. She cloaks herself in being a conservative. Well, a conservative would never vote to stop competition and free market system. She talks about transparency, but it took 10 months for us to find out that she had received $1,000 from Comcast. You think that money was freely given? I suggest that there's something tied to that money. Now, I've stopped running for office, and I'm asking you to vote for Joel Miller. But part of this process, to make sure you understand
time is up.
The entire process. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, candidate Bill Murray and Alyssa Vanderveen. Sorry about that. Speaking for Angela Dugan.
Let's move on to District 1. District 1 candidates, come on up to the stage. You guys can find your name plate and please sit behind that. Hey, Joe. Good first name. Joe Cole. Joe Cole. Yeah, please. Yeah. Oh, Linda, nice to meet you.
I guess so. They should have spread us out a little, huh? So how you doing? Good to see you. You know what? He's here. What?
That's a good idea. Keep them in order. Okay, for those of you that may have joined us late, the format tonight is the first 15 minutes of the time slot that's allotted is for our media panelists to ask some pre-prepared questions that the candidates have not seen. And in that midst, if you hear an answer or have a question that you'd like answered, you can write that question down. There should be slips in the center of your table, and then we will take those off to the side. And the second 15 minutes of the time slot, I will address those questions to our candidates. So that's the format tonight. And with that said, I'll turn it back over to Andrea.
You know what? I'm okay.
I'm good. How are you?
Good, nice Facebook. I checked you out a bit.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah.
Since you're together, that's fine.
Yeah. So you got spring.
Oh, they got one over there? Okay. I'll be happy to share with you. Thank you. No.
Yeah, not a good one probably.
Sorry, I'm gonna totally just write your names down.
Oh, here.
All right. Thank you.
Here. I keep these myself.
Yes, I know. Oh, I know too. Yeah, you might too, actually.
Yep.
No.
Got it.
Who's going to vote for
Thank you, candidates, for coming. District 1 for tonight's Citizen Project Forum. As much like Ralph did earlier, if you happen to be here, I would like to give everyone a chance to provide a small opening statement. So if we can do 1 minute per, and we will start, if we don't mind, with Joe here on the end.
So for the guy whose name is last on the ballot, how come I always get to go first?
We'll reverse the order next time.
All right, so my name is Joe Barrera, and I'm running for City Council from District 1, and I welcome everybody tonight, and I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that I'm here. So why am I running? Well, one of the reasons that I'm running is because I want to fix the Waldo Canyon burn scar. I want to get to that before we have some disastrous floods. I haven't really heard much about that in this campaign, but I think I need to really emphasize that. The other big reason that I'm running is because the present council is, to me, seems to be floundering, and the mayor, under the strong mayor system, seems to be filling a power vacuum there, and I think that that needs to be balanced. So if I'm elected, I will work very hard to clarify the status quo of council. Thank you.
And Don Knight, please.
Good evening, everybody. And again, thank you, as others have said, thank you for coming. We appreciate your coming out here and the due diligence that you're doing as citizens and casting your vote. I'm running because, like many others here, I love this city. And I believe I can bring the success I had as 26 years as an Air Force officer and 10 years doing business development in the defense industry, of leading people and managing programs, to bring our city together and help us grow and move forward as one team to new economic heights. And the successes I have tell me the best way to do that is keep our utilities citizens-owned, to work together regionally wherever we can, whether it's promoting tourism or combating the stormwater. And finally, to promote entrepreneurial relationships like we're doing with the Newman Systems and the Solar Gardens. Thank you.
Thank you. And Linda.
It's Mojer.
Mojer? Thank you.
I know that's why you hesitated. My name is Linda Mojer. I have lived in Colorado Springs for over 22 years, and I'm a small business owner. I own a writing and editing firm, which is basically just myself, so it's very small. And one of my primary clients is the Southern Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce, so I manage much of their business as their executive director. I am running simply because I had, like so many others, a very life-changing experience over the summer. Although I wasn't affected by the fire directly, I was affected by it emotionally, and definitely got a feeling that this community could use more pulling together all the time, not just when there's a disaster. You can start with that shorter part next time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Tim.
Tim Lee. I'm currently a city council person. I'm running for, I guess, election to District 1 or re-election, I guess, really to finish the job I started. And I think the job I started was to be, as they say, the guy that stirs the pot too much or whatever. I do take positions. I take hard positions, and sometimes my policy positions are not looked upon favorably by some of my contemporaries. But we have arguments, and we reach finally conclusions, like we did this afternoon. Hard decision on oil and gas, for example. I've lived in District 1 for over 30 years. I'm very familiar with some of the issues. I'm not familiar with all of the issues, but if I'm elected, I promise to represent the district to the best of my ability.
Thank you. And Julie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Julie Ney, and I decided to run because I'm the mother of 4 sons. And like all of you, I love it here in Colorado Springs. I want to have a hand in continuing to help evolve this city into a place where they want to stay and not run off to another place where it's more profitable for them. I want them to stay here and have their families so that I can be selfish and have them here with me. I think that the city has a lot of issues, and I want to help in making those decisions so that we can have far-reaching and close-reaching decisions that probably have been overlooked by the current council, and I think that I can have a positive impact.
Thank you. And the first question, I'm actually going to start at the other end of the table with you, Julie Ney. And much like the other districts before, I would like to get an idea of how you feel about the ballot issues. Let's start with the TOPS issue. How do you support that? Yes or no, or why and why not?
To my understanding, the funding was there to purchase open space, and so that the funding is already there. So yes, I would support some of that money going to help the upkeep and the parks and trails and so forth. So yes, I would do that. So because there is no more money that the taxpayers would have to come up with. If that were the case, then I probably would not support that. But since there is no more money coming from the taxpayers, I will say yes, supporting that.
Thank you. Tim Lee.
Yeah, I think everybody, any thinking person, supports the park system that we have in Colorado Springs. I've been a strong advocate of parks and open space. I actually have had a plan drawn for a visitor center for the Red Rock Open Space. My children have been through the, I guess we called it the Rockledge Ranch, White House Ranch when they were in there. So I've been involved in parks on the west side, been involved with parks across the city, and certainly endorse anything we can do to enhance funding for the parks.
Thank you. Linda Moser.
Thank you. Of course, trails and open space are very important in this region, and it would be difficult not to. I have only been to 2 city council meetings, and this afternoon, I believe at least part of that was somewhat resolved by some of the discussions that I heard there, and it just made me think a little more closely about some of the details and the specifics of all of these types of issues that really require a lot of attention. I would plan to give that attention. Thanks.
Don Knight.
I voted no on this, and it was a hard decision because we need that money as a city. We have a $983,000 shortfall right now in watering our parks. The plan was that we would get $500K of that from the passage of this amendment. But after much decision, I decided to go with the Trails and Open Space Coalition, who is recommending we vote against it. Not because I want to see our city in a budget problem, but I want to use this as a wake-up call. You know, no matter how much promises we put down, public safety is always going to trump watering our parks in times of economic crisis like we're in now. Brown grass is better than red grass. So we need to think outside the box on how we're going to fund our city parks. And so what I'm proposing is that we get with the defense companies, get with the other companies around here in town. Everybody wants to be a good neighbor. And let's help fund watering the parks through an Adopt a Park program, just like we do with Adopt a Mile on our freeways. Thank you.
Joe Barrera.
I'm a strong supporter of the parks and other amenities that we have, and I definitely will vote in favor of the TOPS ballot issue that's going to be on, is on the ballot right now. I'm sorry that the maintenance of effort clause was not included as part of that. We do need to continue to maintain our parks. I disagree with Don that this is less important than a law enforcement consideration, because recreational programs, amenities, opportunities, cultural opportunities, all of that is actually something that creates an environment in which citizens feel that they belong to the community, and therefore it has a direct impact on the law and order of a community. So this is not a frill. This is an essential thing that we need. Thank you.
The other issue, of course, on the citywide ballot is regarding council pay. And so the same question, which is, do you support that? Do you not support it? And why or why not? And we'll begin with you, Joe Barrera.
Yes, I'm looking to get rich. That's why I'm running. No, it says somewhere, it's written in Scripture, for the laborer is worthy of his hire. Remember that? Huh? You see, you didn't go to Sunday school. Yeah, that's the other thing I'm going to do. I'm going to make all of you guys go to Sunday school. Yeah, we can't afford any longer to have a part-time council. We can't afford to live like we used to live in the 1950s, all right? We're a huge city now, and we have to start acting like one, and we have to elect full-time people who are going to devote all their time, rather than splitting their time, to the city business. And we have to pay people for that. And if we don't pay them, it will actually end up being more expensive than if we paid them. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe Barrera. And Don Knight.
Again, I voted no on this one. Another hard decision, but because I really applaud the young professionals that came forward and put this on the initiative. I support the fact that we want more diversity on council. But when you looked at the actual language, $48,000 plus benefits, plus you can have another job. And I'm sorry, but you know, if I'm going to pay you a living wage, then I want you to be a full-time council person. So I voted no against it for that reason. I also voted no because this pay raise is supposed to come into effect in April of 2015. That's about the same time the money of the federal grant runs out, where we just hired 15 new firefighters. And I think it's more important that we find out or find a way to pay for those people and keep them on the roll than it is to give city council an increase. But with 2 years now, if we get proactive and we start working on the budget and find out the money, I think we can still put it on the November 14 budget if we can find a solution to both and have it enacted at the same time period.
Thank you. And Linda Motor.
I do support paying people fairly for the work that they do. I do feel that there is a balance to be met between having volunteers do work and ask them to do it essentially for free, and then having low expectations. I think in government it's very important that you be able to get what you pay for, but not make salaries so exorbitant that they are in and of themselves an attractant. You do still have to have that nonprofit mentality. And I'm concerned that keeping the salary too low would make it only those people of independent means would be able to run for office. And I don't think that presents a fair balance to the community.
Thank you. And Tim Lee.
Well, I mean, I think this is an interesting issue. I think that the way I would couch it is that on council, there is one person who should be paid full-time, and he should probably be paid equal to the mayor's salary, and that's the president of council. That's a full-time job. And I think that over the course of the next 12 or 24 months, you're going to have a structural change on council. No matter who gets elected, the community conversation will probably tee up restructuring what council looks like. And I think at that time, it might be an appropriate time to have this conversation. But so I think right now, although I was the first person to advocate for pay on council, I don't know, a year and a half ago, and I said we should get paid $96,000 a year. That was really just to jumpstart the conversation. And at the end of the day, this is a premature proposal that doesn't have community support, probably likely to go down in flames. But the president of council's job is full-time, and he should be paid full-time, and I would argue that it should be equal to what the mayor's salary is.
Thank you. And Julie Nay.
My vote will be no on the salary increase. I'm not opposed to some increase, maybe to $10,000 or $12,000 a year at some point. I'm not exactly sure where the money would come from. I have heard both sides of the argument. I am not against, as I said, some pay increase. And I think that the young rising professionals do have a great deal of insight into this, and they do have great points. As far as young people having all the innovations, I think that older generations have a great deal of experience, and they bring a lot to the table. So I would disagree with some of their argument. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have time for another question, and we will begin with Julie Nay down at the end. And actually, I want to springboard off of something that let's see, that Joe Barrera said, which is the Waldo Canyon fire. And of course, this is the district that was heavily hit. So what does council have the ability to do? What could council do in terms of recovery, but also preparation for a potential next time?
Well, I think that probably because of what did happen during the fire, I think that all of those precautions are probably in place because of what did happen. So I think that emergency situation, should it occur again, I think that our first response should be, what should we do for the people who are in harm's way? I think that is our most important priority, especially for the flooding. I think at this point, we should just put all of our attention to those people who could be in potential harm at this point.
Thank you. Tim Lee.
Well, I think council's done a lot of things over the past, since the fire. I mean, we've wrestled with fire code changes and landscape mitigation issues, and I think we've stepped forward and had actually done a lot of very positive things for District 1 in that regard. I think that your question was, what's the one thing council can do? I would say the one thing council can do is to make sure we have good rules with respect to fire mitigation in all the hillside overlay areas. Certainly properly funding the fire departments and making sure we're adequately staffed, making sure we take all the protections to mitigate the risk of another catastrophe like the one we had. Certainly we're doing engineering, and that's coordination with the utilities and with the executive branch in terms of how do we, stop any potential catastrophic flooding and those kind of issues. But, I think we did a good job. I think we'll continue to do a good job to make sure that the citizens are safe.
Thank you. Linda Motor.
I think like so many, the fire was one of the most frightening things that I've ever seen in my lifetime. And now I'm certain that we need to look in another direction at this point. I think with the distress to the topography of that area, that flood is now going to be our most pressing issues. So the first city council meeting that I went to was all about stormwater, and that scared me to death. So now I think that's a very critical issue to deal with as we move forward. Not so much to, I think everyone learned their lesson about fire mitigation around their homes. Now we need to move forward into making sure that stormwater does not become an issue in the coming season.
Thank you. And Don Knight?
Yep. First, I want to separate the Waldo Canyon flooding from the stormwater issues. I see that as two separate actions. For Waldo Canyon, the scars and the flooding damage is on federal land, and so I think it's only right that we get help with federal funding to mitigate any of the damages. And I want to applaud both our congressional delegations and our county commissioners for going in and getting $48 million put into the House budget. It's still got to go through the Senate, though. So what I can bring is, when I was in the Air Force, I had unfortunately had assignment in the Pentagon. So I know how that I know a little bit how DC works, and we got an untapped resource here to help push the Senate. A lot of the big businesses here in town have government relations office, Senate relations office. So I want to work with the rest of our delegation and everything else to help push the Senate for passage on that. And I do have some ideas on how we can mitigate, but time's up. So,
thank you. And Joe Barrera.
It's going to flood if it rains, all right? There's no doubt about it. All the professionals that I've talked to about this, when they're really candid and honest, they'll tell you that we could have catastrophic floods, all right? The work that's been done so far is great. That $48 million that Don's talking about, we got to share that with 10 other states. We need a lot more money. We need a lot more people working up there. I'm the only candidate in this entire slate of candidates, this district and all the other districts, who has a plan to get volunteers up there, people, to do the pick and shovel and bucket work to try to prevent the flood from happening. Everybody talks about what we do after the flood. You know, we have this and that kind of thing, you know, but I want to stop the flood. If we don't stop the flood, our 2013 tourist season could go down the tubes. Last year, it went up in smoke. I don't want to see our community lose another tourist season. Thank you.
All right, it's my turn. I have questions from the audience. So I will paraphrase on some of them. Some of them are directed directly to certain candidates. If that's the case, then what I'll do is rephrase the question in another form so the rest of you can answer as well. I believe today, City Council voted on fracking, and I believe it was 4-4 with Slatko not there, correct, Tim? Yep. Yeah. So the first question actually is to Tim. What was your vote today in regards to fracking?
Well, first of all, let me answer your kind of question with a statement. I mean, I think it was somewhat obvious to people who think about these things that the vote was going to be 4-4. I voted to allow drilling for a variety of reasons. One is that I think that drilling in Colorado Springs is going to be a non-event. And at some point, there are people that can't hear it. Is that better? I'm sorry. So I voted to allow drilling in Colorado Springs because frankly, I don't think it's going to be intrusive. I don't think there's going to be a lot of drilling, and I think Ultra proved that when they pulled out. Maybe the hardest decision I've made in my life, seriously, in my entire life. I mean, I went back and forth and until about the last second, and even with Jan Martin's comments at council, she swayed me in one direction, and it could go either way. This is such an emotional decision. After I got done, I actually really called my pastor and talked through the process with him. Tough decision.
For the rest of you, do you agree or disagree with Tim as far as voting for or against? Sure, Joe, let's start.
If I'd been up on the dais today, I would have voted against the fracking. And the reason is that I don't think it's a heavy industrial use that belongs inside the city limits, you know, for all of the usual reasons. But having said that, if I were a member of the county commission, I probably would vote to allow it in the rural parts of the county away from homes and schools and businesses. So it's an issue that, ladies and gentlemen, that is not really black and white. There's a lot of gray area in this thing, okay? This afternoon, I had long conversations with both anti and pro-fracking people, and the science is still uncertain, is what I can honestly say. All right? Thank you.
I'm in favor of oil and gas production, and again, after a lot of research. So I've been to every council meeting since the start of November. So I was there on the 27th of November when they had the first reading, and I listened to all the people concerned about it, and I walked away a little bit more with some questions, valid questions that they had, and I went out and did the research. And the research I found, and again, I listened to the what was supposed to be the second reading on the 11th of December, and I listened to the folks today. And again, I think the oil and gas regulation, the ordinance that was put forward, mitigates to the best extent possible all their fears. The only one that was probably short is the one that was brought up by President Pro Tem Martin, that there's not enough state inspectors. And so the one change I would have had is I would have gone with her idea that locally we hire inspectors to make sure that that ordinance is being complied with.
Once again, I'm stunned by the complexity of these issues as I learn more about them. But one of my primary reasons for trying to become involved in this particular process is my concern for my neighbors. And if it's not proven to be safe, or it's going to impact health adversely, I have strong reservations. So the additional information I learned this afternoon about the amount of water that it would take for this process also caused me a great deal of concern in terms of making sure that the community and the people involved get water first over an industry that is frankly still unproven.
Fracking and using our, getting to our natural resources here is going to give this city a great deal of money, jobs, things that we are in great need of here. We cannot approach things like this with any emotion whatsoever. This has to be a decision made on facts and facts alone. These decisions have over and over and over again been too overridden with emotion. If there is a danger to the community, then the answer has to be no. But we have to be sure that there is indeed danger. And if there is no danger, we must go forth, and we must go forth safely, but we must take advantage then of the economy. Thank you.
For those of you still wondering a lot about fracking, there's a really interesting, very comprehensive article in National Geographic this month on fracking, and it's very comprehensive. So I know there's a lot of folks who, even in our newscast, we say fracking, and people go, what is that and how does it affect me? So it's actually interesting. At this point, with the sake of time, I'd like to give each of you a closing statement. So Joe, why don't we start with you?
Okay. I think that the most important thing for the next city council, on top of all of the issues that we've discussed here this evening already, is this overarching issue or concern about the big picture, the future of our city. Where are we going to go? Are we going to just keep going the way we always have been going? Kind of just improvising and reacting to crises, floundering along. I think we need to have a different kind of leadership, and we need to start thinking how we are going to grow into the 21st century, and that's what I would help us to do. Thank you.
Thank you all again for coming, and I'll just repeat by saying I'm Don Knight, and the success I had in my 36-year career is telling me the right way forward is to keep our utilities citizens-owned, to work regionally wherever we can, be it from tourism to battling stormwater, and to promote small business entrepreneurial relationships like we're doing with the Newman Scrubbers and the Solar Gardens. The other issue facing us is the governance of the CSU utilities, Colorado Springs utilities, because City Council always also sits as their board of directors, and everybody's clamoring that we need qualified people on there. Well, I've been to the board meetings too, and the job that City Council does there is no different than the job I did for 2 years as second in command of all support for Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Station, including overseeing its water, wastewater, and electric utilities. So while others may say they're not qualified to do that job, I believe I am. Again, I'm Don Knight. I appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Again, my name is Linda Moger, and I am actually very pleased to have gotten through this. And my my primary point there is simply that in seeking a seat on City Council, that is my ultimate goal, is to have a seat on City Council. I am not running to be the best politician in the room. That's probably never going to happen for me. But anyone who knows me or anyone that I've spoken to or worked with in 30 years plus in nonprofit work has always agreed that I work hard. I'm a quick learner, and if I'm elected, I will certainly do the very, very best job I could for you. Thanks.
I'm Tim Lee. I'm running for City Council. Gosh, I think I said that the first time about 2.5 years ago. I think this council's had a lot of successes, and we always get beat on that we don't have good leadership. I would call the BS card on that. Any big decision we've had to make at council's pretty much been unanimous, except for maybe today the oil and gas thing's been pretty contentious. But other than that, we've had pretty damn good leadership on City Council. Certainly we've had some contention with the mayor's office. People say I side with the mayor. People say I don't side with the mayor. That doesn't matter. We've gone through a transformative change in the way we do governance. It's been hard. We've done a great job as a council. If I'm reelected, I'll continue to work toward mending those fences, if you will, and bringing the government together so it does the best job for the city.
In closing, I'd like to say that thank you, first of all, for having me out here. Thanks, everybody, for coming tonight. I don't have all the answers. Anyone who gets up here and says that they do, I would be a little suspicious. We are here in seeking a seat or re-election for a seat so that we can learn. We are here at the behest of the governed, folks. We are here to serve you. That is something that should never be forgotten, and sometimes, actually a lot of times, it is forgotten. And government's role is to get out of the way of the movers and shakers out there so that you all can come up with the answers for us and that you can run this city. We are here to govern you and to see that it runs well, but really, you are here to run the city and to come up with the best answers. Thank you very much. I hope I have your support.
All right, that wraps up District 1. Whoever is elected, by the way, please answer the phone when Fox 21 calls. All right, you guys are actually dismissed, and we will roll on to District 3.
Up to the best dressed guy, you'd win hands down.
Thanks for being here.
Oh, okay, Christy. Do I get to get my name tag?
Yeah, you can have it.
I took the nut off.
Makes
it a little easier.
You did great.
Sorry.
But I bet you called me a bit like your grandson.
Let's do it. That might be actually a lot of fun. All right, let's do that in May. All right. All right.
Is there a sitting order?
Keith, I would tell you, my father-in-law. Oh, yeah. Junior high.
His next door neighbor is.
Where do you want us?
You all are moving faster than I am. I'd love to have you here too. And
I didn't actually ever have to apply for a teacher, but he was one of our overseers, if you will.
Randy or Sarah.
Yeah, that was perfect.
You already have a name tag.
Keith, how are you?
Good, are you?
Good. Is your birthday?
It's my birthday.
Is it really?
So I dressed up. I thought, what can I teach at Colorado Springs College? I've got to wear something for the kids.
That's a great time.
For Social Security.
No.
You have a motion, you have a tie vote.
I like the tie, though. That's good stuff. Are we ready? Are you ready?
take. It means that if someone's going to develop oil and gas, there's a longer process to go through. We really don't have any regulations protecting it at this point.
So we have the city council doesn't say.
No, that's not what the vote was. It's not a good
Regulations.
All right, at this, folks, we are going to roll on with our next time slot. With this time slot, we've got the candidates for District 3. For those of you that are just joining us, the first 15 minutes of the time slot is questions from our media representative. And then the last 15 minutes are questions from you, the audience. So feel free to fill those out, and we will take those and ask those questions in the second half. So at this time, I will turn it over to our media representative for this time slot. It's obviously our own Fox 21's managing editor, Kelly Helton.
You all ready? First question. Our viewers have expressed concern about the recent crime rate in Colorado Springs. Do you think our current police force is large enough for our population? If not, how do you combat that, knowing the budget is tight? We'll start with Keith King.
Well, good evening. Thanks for coming, and thanks for taking the time to get informed on issues that are important to the city of Colorado Springs. So every level of government has a specific primary objective. The federal government, it's national defense. At the state level, it's education. And public safety is a primary responsibility of city government. And so in my particular case, I think we need to make sure that as we allocate and prioritize services, as we make sure that we have things that are important for our citizens in the areas that we serve and also across the city, that we make sure that we are having adequate safety. And I know that we're in the process of bringing on about another 50 police officers onto the force, and I think that that's a very good approach. I think Mayor Bach has also suggested that we increase them a little bit more in their pay, and I think that's good. That's our primary objective. It's the most important thing that we do at the city level, and it will be my #1 priority as I serve on the council.
Tom Gallagher.
Well, the question assumes that there's a correlation between police officers and crime rate. Folks, we'll never have enough cops, not if we put one in front of every house. Strong communities make for safe communities. Okay, you need to know your neighbors. Okay, you need to know who belongs. It's that old, little old lady peering out the window, the way it was when I was a kid. Okay, if I misbehaved, the phone was ringing at my house. Okay, police, they clean up the problem. Okay, but they don't stop it. I look at it. I live in an active engagement zone. Neighborhood watch tends to mean that the neighbors watch while the plasma gets loaded in the back of somebody's car. Okay, I actively engage. What are you doing here? Okay, bad people won't answer that question, they'll leave. Good people will answer that question and you direct them where they want to go.
Jim Bensberg.
Well, good evening, folks. Thanks for being here. I am Jim Bensberg, and one of my priorities on the Board of County Commissioners, where I served from 2003 to the end of 2010, was public safety. And this is why I have gained the endorsement of El Paso County Sheriff Terry Makita. Now, public safety was always at the top of my list, but when you put together a budget for a local government, and the local budget for El Paso County is very similar to the budget for the city of Colorado Springs, you have to prioritize. And I think we've done that in a pretty effective manner. I'm glad to see that new police are coming on board, because I think boots on the ground is much more effective than passing panhandling ordinances.
My name's Bob Kinsey. I don't have a really good answer to that question. If you don't have the revenue, you can't increase the number of people on the police force. It would be nice to have as many as we think we need, but unless we have the revenue, we can't.
Brandy Williams.
I'm going to stand up. I've been sitting in a council meeting for the last 5 hours. So again, thank you all for coming. This is really what government's all about, is people getting engaged and people doing their best to do their homework and their research on both the people and the issues. Public safety, I think, is government's #1 role. It's what gives us a safe community, a vibrant community where all of us can live, work, and play. We actually went through a paradigm shift in our last budget, and we changed from, instead of always being behind the curve as far as the attrition rate with our police officers, to really proactively looking at how many we will lose from attrition and really doing our best to fund our budget to hire those in the coming year. I'm also happy to announce we have about $9 million more in our 2012 budget than we anticipated, so I don't think we've decided how we're going to roll that over, but it really will help with the public safety for the entire community.
In November, the state passed Amendment 64. Now Colorado is in the forefront of the gun control debate because we're one of the only states pushing for legislation, and today the House approved the civil union bill. Do you think Colorado is becoming a progressive state, and if so, is that a good thing? We'll start with Brandy Williams.
In El Paso County, progressive has a 4-letter word, or is a 4-letter word. So I think really what's happening in Colorado is again, like the paradigm shift that I mentioned earlier, is really looking at what's on the horizon and what it's going to take to get us there. I think that a lot of these issues are ones that have been brewing a lot, and really I think Colorado is on the forefront of a lot of different conversations, at least in El Paso County or in Colorado Springs. We have so many people that are moving in and out and bringing different ideas to this community that if there are new and different ideas around the world, I think they're tending to get here first. So I really just think that it's a way that we're reflecting what's happening nationally more because of our population and how they're moving in and out.
Bob Kinsey?
I don't understand that this question helps to clarify much, but I certainly support 64, and I certainly support the idea of legalized and taxed sales of marijuana in our community. It's a source of revenue, and also because getting this thing out of the illegal darkness and into the light means a reduction, I think, in crime. It stops encouraging people who think it's okay to break the law because there's something wrong with the law that prohibits marijuana. So what created crime? Prohibition in the 1930s. We learned that. We should have learned it about marijuana at the same time, but we didn't.
Jim Bensberg.
Political issues come and go statewide, countywide, locally, but what has never gone out of style is good old-fashioned customer service, i.e. constituent casework on behalf of the citizens who elect you to city council. I believe that local issues are pocketbook issues. They're less partisan in nature than they are just common sense issues about how to balance the budget, how to run our utilities company in efficient fashion so that we don't have to pay higher rates through experimental programs. And I believe that when you elect folks to council, they ought to be responsive to you. And I pledge to you that first thing I'll do is show up for votes on council, and I'll show up for office hours and be happy to answer the phone when you call.
Tom Gallagher?
Well, I think it's important to draw a distinction. Amendment 64 was a citizen-driven initiative. Okay? And the people in Colorado, for whatever reason, decided to draw a line in the sand and stand up to the federal government and say enough is enough. And it is the responsibility of elected officials at the local level, as we did with Amendment 20, to step in front of this and regulate it. As to the civil unions and the gun control debate, that's the legislature being the legislature. What gets passed this year may be overturned in a couple of years. It's not the citizens speaking, it's their elected representatives. And, no elected representative is Karnak. To echo Mr. Bensberg, You know, as my 8 years on council attested, I'm there for you. I work for you. Okay, I'm not driven by any agenda other than what is in the best interest of Colorado Springs and its citizens.
And Keith King.
Thank you. Well, having served 12 years in the legislature and understanding that process and also being on a school board, there's two fundamental differences between partisan politics and nonpartisan politics. I think the reality of how you work with people in the system, wherever it is, whether it's on a board or whether it's in the legislature, is what is paramount and critical to accomplishing good things. So the reality of it is we need to have a council that knows how to do legislative work and come together and be able to be productive for the citizens of the city. When I was in the legislature, I carried many, many bills with Democrats. I carried a lot of bills with Republicans. I carried bills that were problem-solving things for the general public and what they were most interested in. And of those 100 bills and resolutions that I passed, they were dealing with things like auto insurance, they were dealing with things like taxation, education, the issues that really matter to people. I think that's what is critical when you serve, is that you want to make sure that you're looking at issues, trying to find the problems that exist, find practical solutions, and move the city forward.
Thank you. Should City Council retain control of Colorado Springs utilities? We'll start with Jim Bensberg.
I believe that over the course of the next 2 years that City Council will continue to be, regardless of the political shift in winds, the governing board for Colorado Springs Utilities. Now, if somebody can come up with a better plan that better governs utilities, fine. But right now, the 9-member board of directors sitting as city council and also heading the utilities oversees not only the professional leadership, but they have a committee that reports to them, the UPAC committee, Utilities Policy Advisory Committee. My view, hasn't been used very well in the past. They've made several recommendations that have been routinely ignored by council, but the current system is highly workable. And the bottom line is we enjoy some of the lowest rates on the Front Range, if not the lowest rates for any city on the Front Range.
Bob Kinsey?
No operation of the city is more powerful in terms of determining policy than the Colorado Springs Utilities. That's a big piece of what this city is. And its board of directors should be the city council, a well-paid city council, by the way, that can take the time to manage things correctly. The overriding issue that we face as a city, as citizens of the planet, is global warming. And global warming is an issue of human beings using fossil fuel power wrongly, rather than going towards things such as solar and wind. And Colorado Springs Utilities can move us in that direction.
Brandy Williams?
I'm going to answer absolutely. I am an adamant supporter of making and keeping Colorado Springs Utilities locally owned. I would not be able to stand before you today and say that Colorado Springs Utilities, because of its local ownership, was one of the first utilities in the nation to have a community solar garden program. And that's because we have local ownership and because your board members are in this room tonight and you were able to come to them with your ideas, and as a community you were able to come and let us know your thoughts on where we should move this community forward. So I am in favor of keeping Colorado Springs Utilities locally owned, and I will support that position when I'm reelected.
Keith King?
Thank you. Well, this is a big issue and a very important issue, and one that I've done a lot of thinking about, and we're definitely going to need to make sure that we contain local control of utilities, that we don't even entertain the options to sell part of it or not part of it, or however we want to govern it is somewhat objective. We can have a kind of an advisory council that comes forward and helps us with experts. But in the end, it's absolutely critical for the council to remain in control of the rates and how we commission plants, how we do bonding, how we do service for our communities. There's really two types of governance systems. You can have an appointed board or you can have an elected board. And in every case on the boards that I have been on and been involved in, I've been on both type of boards, the elected board brings accountability to the people. And that's what we want. We want to keep the rates low. We want to keep the service strong and reliable. And the way to do that is to keep council in control.
And Tom Gallagher.
Well, I don't see any reason why council can't run the utility. City council has run this utility for almost 100 years. The first 80 were as a division of city government. There's some hiccups with the enterprise wall. Okay, the pieces don't work as well together as they could. And that's, you know, if you're going to do utility repairs and we're going to do road resurfacing, do the utility repairs before we resurface the road. But those are little hiccups that we can, you know, navigate through. It's a tremendous asset for the community. It is something in our toolbox that very few competing communities have. And we need to guard it. We need to grow it. We need to make it work for you.
That was everybody. Now it's my turn. All right, we only got a couple questions. I will ask one that's real quick, by the way, and you guys can all just run through your answer. How long have you lived in the district? Brandy, why don't we start with you?
I've lived in District 3 for less than a year.
4 years.
I'm proud to say I was born in the district, not very far from here at St. Francis Hospital. I've moved around the country over the years, but I've maintained a continuous residence that whole time.
24 of my 31 years in the city.
I've represented lots of different organizations, from school boards to the House, State Senate, and I've been in the district 26 years.
All right. Question, we'll start with Bob. Would you support more wind power from CSU?
Absolutely. How about taking the Banning Lewis Ranch and turning it into a wind farm instead of a drilling mess? That would be a perfect idea.
The rest of you can answer as well.
Are you sure Bob's not the only one that gets to answer? We put a contract out last year for Colorado Springs Utilities, and yes, I would support more wind. We're looking to actually sell out that contract as we speak right now. So we do have wind and solar on the books, and all we can do to increase the availability for both of those for the entire community, I would be in support of.
Joe, I've said for a long time that I'm an advocate of all the above for energy sources, but I will tell you, if you're a bird lover, you may not like the aftermath of some of these wind farms that seem to be so popular, and you're probably not going to be a real advocate of solar farms, or solar gardens, I guess is the boutique term du jour, once you realize how much your electric rate is going to go up each month to subsidize the solar industry.
Colorado Springs has to maintain a renewable energy portfolio. It's a state mandate. We are not as aggressive as the investor-owned utilities. We need to be careful. The problem with wind farms out east is there's no transmission lines. Okay, and you can make all the electricity in the world. If you can't get those excited electrons to wall outlets, it doesn't do anybody any good. So, these efforts have to be located in, coordinated efforts with existing transmission lines, or, the cost of the transmission has to be included in the project. I'm for everything. Okay, it only makes sense. Fossil fuels aren't the only answer. They happen to be the predominant answer at the time, and once the interoperability and intermittent issues with renewable are addressed, we'll see more and more of it.
I think we need to be careful how we mandate what type of percentages have to come from certain types of energy sources. And so when I was in the legislature, when we started looking at mandating certain percentages, whether it be 5, 10, 15, 20%, I voted against those percentages. If you want to go ahead and have a portfolio where you have your electricity coming from solar or wind or whatever, that should be a market decision that you make. That should be not something that is mandated and required to be done. And let me tell you why I think that is the case. It is important for us to have affordable rates for energy so that we have an opportunity to be able to have the jobs that need those types of electrical rates to be competitive across the world for the people that want to have good work. And so it might not be a big issue for you, whether it's a solar powered or wind powered or whatever it is, but for some industries to come into the city, utility rates are very critical for their success. And so that's why let's let the market determine how we do it.
This question is very specific to District 3. In the wake of Waldo Canyon, it has been said that had that fire been in the Broadmoor Bluffs area, a lot more homes would have burned. As fire mitigation stands, some communities in our area, some neighborhoods have actually really become proactive with regard to fire mitigation. What proposal would you guys have for some of the areas, Cheyenne Canyon, Upper Skyway, and the Broadmoor Bluffs area, to get those folks motivated about fire mitigation? Randy, you want to start?
I'm going to add on a little bit to what a District 1 candidate said. The House did put the $48 million in their continuing resolution, and the Senate most recently put $65 million in theirs. So, and one thing, when our delegation went back to Washington, D.C. to talk to everyone back there, they said, we understand that you need these monies now to address the issues with your utilities infrastructure that's been washed out due to the flood that occurred in July of last year. But we really want you to be proactive. If we're going to balance this out with dollars for the catastrophes that happen, we want you to take and really look at mitigating these areas. So we already have essentially a coalition formed, a group that's come together. So just taking that same group and working forward to really push the importance of mitigation and creating a plan and executing it would be the path that I would take.
Bob?
I suspect folks there are pretty motivated already. If they aren't, they're asleep. Waldo Canyon is not an isolated event. It's one of the events in the long trail that we're going to be walking in the midst of global climate change. And fire is a major piece of that because of the increased drought that we're facing. We can't be sending water down an oil pipe in order to frack to get more oil to create more global warming. What we need to do is keep that water around so that we can fight fires and keep people alive with good drinking water. I think we need to just constantly be aware in all of the policies that we create with city government that we have to learn how to live in this new drought condition that's created by global warming. And that includes fire danger, and things have to be mandated around that in order to mitigate the areas that have been developed that shouldn't have been developed.
Jim?
This issue is very near and dear to my heart because in 1950, before I was born, a fire started at the Broadmoor Golf Course and swept south, killing 8 people, and it wiped out the Bensburg Ranch right across from Fort Carson. Since then, we've seen other fires, such as the Hayman Fire, now the Waldo Canyon Fire, and we knew early on from a video that was taken by the Carmichael Training Center folks that there was a nascent fire in the Waldo Canyon on public lands, Forest Service lands. We need to be diligent, and I support a third-party audit of the Waldo Canyon fire to find out how we can more quickly put out these fires before they spread.
Okay, for purposes of disclosure, 1983, I was a Montana wildland firefighter. And I look at that district and I know what needs to be done. We need to cut brakes, and we need to cut them now. Not because brakes stop fire, but brakes create access points. And that was one of the biggest things with Waldo Canyon is they couldn't get in. There needs to be mitigation. You know, the city has spent millions of dollars on a mapping system, and we haven't spent all that much money on actual mitigation measures. Okay, the digital map isn't going to save us. There are places where covenants are going to come in conflict, okay, where you're not allowed to trim, okay, and that has to go away. It's all about defensible space. It's all about being able to draw a containment line. It's about being able to wield every resource available in the community, which means if Jerry Schnabel offers his bulldozers and his water trucks, we say yes. We also call every other person with bulldozers, and because that's how you fight these things, with chainsaws and bulldozers.
Well, I think one of the critical portions of local government, which we talked about earlier, was public safety. And public safety in this particular case is our homes and how we take care of our homes and our neighborhoods. And so I think there's multiple levels of responsibility here. Let's start with the local level, that's our own homes and our own individuals. After the fire, we went out and we hired somebody, and we made sure we mitigated our own house and area and around our house to make sure that we were doing what we needed to do to make sure that our home was safe. Then I think we have the level of the neighborhoods, where we work with our neighbors to try and make sure that we are mitigating the kind of density that would be around our homes so that we have safety. And then I think we look at a more global area of the city and see how the city can have responsibility to make sure that we work to mitigate any of the problems that we can do it so that we don't have a problem. I've lived in Broadmoor Bluffs for a long time, and believe me, it was a big concern, and we made sure that we tried to do what we could do to make sure that we were safe and that our house would not be safe, would also be safe in the neighborhood.
All right, closing statements. Tom, you're up.
My name is Tom Gallagher. I served on the city council from 2003 to 2011. History has shown that I was on the right side of most of my votes. Okay, I do my homework, okay, and I work for you. Okay, that is the foremost thing in my mind as a city council person, is how the decisions that I make affect you. Okay, I believe in Colorado Springs. I think this is the greatest community that has ever graced the planet. I think that Colorado Springs has an opportunity to lead, to be that shining light that everybody looks to for guidance. And I would like to be part of that. So I ask for your vote.
Jim, why don't you go ahead?
Once again, thanks for coming. My name is Jim Bensberg. I'm a third-generation Coloradan, born and raised in the 3rd District. I'm intimately familiar with its issues, its people, from the west side all the way down to NORAD. It's a diverse district, and I'm keenly aware of the demographics. Here's what you get when you elect Jim Bensberg to City Council. You get someone who's decisive, someone who's worked at the federal level, the state level, and obviously the local level, 8 years on the Board of County Commissioners. That's where the experience comes in. I've been accountable that whole time to my constituents, to the taxpayers, and if I'm elected to City Council, I'll be responsible to the ratepayers, Colorado Springs utilities, water, wastewater, electric, and gas. And finally, my record of community service is unparalleled, and I would ask anybody who's in this community to tell you just exactly how I've been involved over the last 58 years. Thank you for being here.
My name is Bob Kinsey. I'm 75 years old. I'm a father, a grandfather, husband. First thing I did when I moved into my Colorado Springs house was put 20 solar panels on it with the help of CSU. Great program. Haven't paid a penny for electricity since then except to hook up for the backup with Drake Power Plant. I believe that the greatest thing we face is to adjust all the systems in which we live to the threat of global warming and to live as responsible citizens of the planet in that regard. I believe that that's the only way we can leave a hope for our children and our grandchildren of a decent life on this planet. And I want my city to be responsible about that. I want this America Beautiful city to set an example for how we can live on renewable and sustainable energy.
I'm Brittany Williams. I'm currently your at-large representative on Colorado Springs City Council, and I'm also a civil engineer. And as an engineer, I found that means I'm addicted to solving problems. And I spent the last 2 years doing all I can to solve the issues that came forward with the city. What do I see the next 4 years for Colorado Springs? Bringing young professionals to this city. We all want to live in a vibrant city. We all want to have the best and brightest right here in our city, as our doctors, as our nurses, as our engineers, as our healthcare professionals. We want them here. We want this to be the best city it can possibly be. If we didn't, we wouldn't live here. We would have picked another city to call home. My family's been here for over a century, and I am honored to serve, and I am honored to be here to represent them. My uncle passed away this past weekend, and I know that he won't be there for my swearing in, but I know he's proud of my last 2 years in office. I'm Brandy Williams, and I'm running for District 3.
Thank you. I'm Keith King. I'm honored to have the opportunity to try and represent you again. This is my 7th time I've asked voters to elect me. I've been honored to have been elected to the school board, to serve 4 years, 4 different terms in the State House, 1 in the Senate. I'm also honored to have the opportunity to be able to come back to the city and give back to the city. When we moved here, when I was 29 years old, we started Waterbed Palace. We've run a business for 25 years. We enjoy, hopefully all you enjoyed sleeping on a waterbed at one time or another in your life, and hopefully you bought it from Waterbed Palace. So we've given back to the community in so many different ways. We're looking for one more opportunity to give back to the community. I think I bring something unique to the process here in Colorado Springs, and that's legislative experience. The council is a legislative body. And I think if we structure that legislative body in an appropriate way, I think we can make a real difference. I've been honored to be endorsed by the Colorado Police Association. I've been honored to be endorsed by the Gazette. I'm honored to be able to have an opportunity to serve you. I hope I earn your vote, and I hope I can serve you in the council over the next 4 years. My name is Keith King. I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
All right. And Keith, this is not an endorsement, but that is the best tie of the night. The tie you're wearing there with the Peanuts gang?
It's my birthday tie.
Yeah.
Did I tell them? It's my birthday today, so I have birthday cake out there for all of you to enjoy and eat. I don't want to take it home, so take some cake.
All right, that wraps up District 3. Thank you guys for taking time out of your schedules to be here tonight. All right, the candidates in District 5, if you can make your way to the stage, you guys are up next, and we will get that section started as we close out the evening. All right, again, District 5 candidates, if you guys could make your way to the stage. All right, folks. Well, we are ready to start the question and answer period for District 5. Again, thank you all for being here. Candidates, the time is being kept right here in the front here. She will give you a green card for 30 seconds, an orange card for wrapping it up, and the dreaded red card, which means please stop. All right, at this time, the first set of questions will come from our media panelist, Kelly Helton with Fox 21 News.
We will start with this one. We will go with Al Loma first. In reference to council compensation, do you feel council deserves pay equivalent to a full-time job? Please explain.
Well, when I ran, I understood what we were getting paid. I heard I was getting twice what I get paid for D11 of being on the school board, so we get paid zero, so twice times zero is probably zero. If I would not have proposed that pay increase if I were on the city council, although I do understand that the city council does do a lot of work, and they probably should get some compensation, but there has to be a better way of proposing such a commitment of funds, rather than just a last minute, let's get it on the ballot before we get off council, or whichever way they decided to do it. So yeah, it would be better to be looked at over a couple of years, and if needed, and we found the resources, then perhaps we could add that. But the way it was done was not fair play.
Jill Gabler?
I believe that ultimately you're going, I'm a spaz. You're ultimately going to get better people, a more diverse group, and some younger people on council if you pay them a living wage. However, I think the proposal brought to the city council that was brought by the young professionals probably wasn't thorough enough. It didn't include how they would find the funding, where it would come from in the budget, and I think it just needs to be a longer and more thorough process. But yes, ultimately you're going to get a better group of people and more diverse people if you pay them a living wage.
Good evening, I'm Bernie Herpin, currently serving on City Council, and I did not vote to put the pay proposal on the ballot. I believe City Council members should be adequately compensated, but I believe it needs to come from a more reasoned source, not at the last minute, either from a citizen charter review committee or maybe a citizen petition. Because I've been serving on council for 5 years now, I knew what the job entails and how difficult it is for some members to serve on city council. So you don't have the kind of wage that would allow you to do the job as full-time as you would. Because it would personally benefit me, I'd allow me to retire from my full-time job and work more on city council. I felt that it would be self-serving, so I did not vote to put it on the ballot.
And a few major changes in Colorado in the last few months. In November, we passed Amendment 64. Now we're in the forefront of the gun control debate. And then, of course, today, the approval from the House of the Civil Union Bill. Do you think Colorado is becoming more progressive? And if so, is that a good thing? We will start with Bernie Herpin.
Well, I think that the Colorado legislature has done two things. One, to increase freedom and choice by passing the Civil Union Bill, and secondly, to restrict the rights of law-abiding citizens by passing gun control bills that will do nothing to stop gun violence. If a person wants to commit a crime with a firearm, he's going to figure out a way to get that firearm, and no law, no sign on the door is going to stop him from doing that. All we've done is penalize those of us who are law-abiding citizens who obey the laws. I don't know if we call that progressive or not. I call it as an attack on our freedoms.
Jill Gabler?
I'm not sure if we're supposed to comment on the actual bills or just talk about the process. I think Colorado does a really great job of being part of the democratic process, that we have robust conversations about issues, and I think Colorado Springs is becoming more progressive. I heard Brandy say that was a four-letter word. I don't think it's a four-letter word. I personally like that our legislature is having these conversations. I may or may not agree with some of them, but I really think that we are on the forefront, so yes.
And Al Loma?
We are becoming more progressive. We're a purple state. We flip back and forth.
My personal philosophy as a conservative is that it is not a good thing when you're taking away individual rights, such as gun control, for one. I have no problem with civil unions. This is America, and people can do what they like. But I believe marriage is between a man and a woman. The marijuana issue, as an operator of a drug and alcohol rehab program, every one of my members or clients that have come to my program have begun their quest into hard drugs, be it heroin, methamphetamines, PCP, LSD, you name the drug. They began by taking marijuana. Unfortunately, this is the law of land, so we're going to have to figure out a way to monitor it, control it to the best of our ability, because it is a law. So we have to have a dialogue in that respect.
Numerous Fox 21 viewers have commented on our Facebook page, website about crime rates in Colorado Springs. Do you think our current police force is large enough? If not, how do you combat that, knowing that there are budget constraints? And we will start with Jill Gabler.
Sorry. I do believe that public safety is our #1 priority as a core service in our city. And I know we are at our maximum strength of 635, and I hear we are hiring more police officers, and I do think that is a great thing. I also think it's really important as our communities and our neighborhoods that we need to work together to build community, and there are lots of ways to do that. I think Kono's doing a great job, but it starts with each of us working in our communities. So yes, I support additional police force and more protection for our citizens, that having a city that has low crime, it's beneficial, it brings business, but it does start with the communities.
Bernie Herpin.
As a 27-year volunteer with the Colorado Springs Police Department, public safety is my #1 issue. And over the 5 years that I've been on City Council, I've been very supportive of our public safety. We are underfunded for police officers per 1,000 compared to the national average. In the past, we have been playing catch-up to replace officers who have left through attrition. When we adopted the 2013 budget, we adopted a means to overhire on police, take into account attrition for this year. Therefore, we'll be holding 2 police academies, 1 fire academy, so that we will keep our level up. The concern I have is that we become a training ground. If we're not adequately paying our police and fire, we'll train them up and they'll go to some other jurisdiction. A recently completed compensation study showed that our police was underpaid by about 4% for the medium and fire about 8%. And the mayor and the administration are bringing forward a proposal to increase police and fire pay to City Council, which I will be supporting.
Aloma?
Well, my undergraduate is, I have a BS in public administration, and when you look at the fundamental structure of government, its sole main purpose is public safety and infrastructure. I have a long history of working with public safety, the police department, police chiefs, all of them, all since Kramer. In fact, in 2004, I attended a meeting with, when Kramer was still chief of police, and I coined the phrase that is now on every police cruiser, safeguarding our community as a family. That is a phrase that I coined years ago, and to my surprise, it was adopted and is now a part of the police department culture. So I support the proper pay, but competing against other jurisdictions is almost a misnomer, because working in Colorado Springs is not like working in Oakland, California, or Denver. This is a nice place to work in comparison to other large cities. So, but if we had the money, I would love to pay them more.
If fracking is not allowed on Banning Lewis Ranch, what do you think the best use for the land is? Bernie?
Well, the original annexation agreement for Banning Lewis Ranch had it master planned as a residential, business, and commercial district, with the developer providing infrastructure, roads, water, a water treatment plant. When Aries, who created Banning Lewis Ranch and got it annexed into the city, decided to take a flyer and go live in his yacht in Florida, it kind of fell into disrepair. And then the economy turned south, and so it became impossible to be developed. There was just not the demand for that kind of development. Then it went into bankruptcy, and Ultra Resources purchased it out of bankruptcy for $20 million. They decided to use it to drill for oil. Their test wells showed it was not commercially available. So it needs to go back. It belongs to Ultra. It needs to be their decision whether they'll develop it, sell it off to a developer, or whatever they want to do. It should be eventually developed.
Al Lama?
Can you repeat it again so I can repeat your question?
Sure. If Banning Lewis Ranch, if fracking is not allowed on Banning Lewis Ranch, what do you think is the best use for that land?
Okay. Well, they've been talking about it for decades, and houses won't go out there for years. So if the fracking doesn't go forward, what happens to Banning Lewis Ranch will be out of our time frame. By the time anything can really conceivably be done at Banning Lewis, all of us will be out of office. So that's where we're at right now. No homes will be built. Nothing will happen. It'll just be empty space. And some people like that. If you have a ranch out there, you'll love it. But nothing will really happen unless they do hit oil. And hopefully they do, because that would bring an economic boom to our community. I have friends in North Dakota. Currently, they can't even find employees to work at McDonald's flipping burgers for $15 an hour. The housing, it's off the roof. Contractors are backlogged 3 and 4 months every week. The job production could happen. So my wish would that they would find oil. If not, we're going to be stuck with some beautiful plains, and we can see the deer and the antelope play.
And Jill Gabler?
Well, my hope, I guess, would be that Ultra doesn't find any oil there, and neither does Hillcore, and that in the next 4 years when I'm on City Council, that yes, we could potentially have that land sold off, maybe to a land trust and sold back to the parks. I guess maybe I'm dreaming, but I love the idea of adding on to Corral Bluffs, maybe putting a reservoir there, and making that a multi-use property that isn't just housing, but has a lot of other uses too.
All right, I'm using some older questions. If anybody has any questions, feel free to submit them. But I do have still a few. All right, the city has major budget constraints. Sometimes things like parks and transportation can suffer. Would you support a repeal of Tabor in order to alternate or alleviate, budget issues? Bernie, why don't we start with you? It's the dreaded Tabor question.
No, I'm prepared for the Tabor question because I've lived Tabor for 5 years. Tabor's good. The idea of citizens voting on tax increases is great. There was a move back 3 or 4 years ago. We were going to put on the ballot to take the city Tabor away. We'd still be under the state Tabor, so that's the problem. We can't just eliminate the city without doing something with state. And during that discussion, the biggest problem with Tabor becomes the ratchet down effect. When our budget went from $242 million in 2007 to $212 million in 2010, as the economy recovers, that 212 became our baseline. We can't grow any more than that, plus a factor for growth. So demand for services didn't decrease, so we needed a way to combat the ratchet down effect. And my proposal was, instead of looking at the most previous year, look at the last 5 years and pick the highest level. That would allow us to come out of a recession quicker, restore services without raising taxes.
Well, in the interest of time, and since the Gazette thinks I always agree with Mr. Herpen, I'll just say that on this issue, yes, I completely agree. We should always be voting on tax increases, but yes, we should eliminate the ratchet down effect. Thanks.
My last 4 years on the 11 board, we've had to deal with Tabor. Any government entity does, and let's say this, that if it wasn't for Tabor, this community would be in trouble. Are there areas that need to be corrected? Yes. But it has kept us in check. I have friends in California and different cities that are going bankrupt because government does not know how to control itself. They've never seen a tax raise that they didn't love to spend. In essence, they love spending other people's money. And Tabor put a cramp on that style. I was on the Charter Review Commission about 8 years ago, and I spoke with the CFO at the time, and I asked him, and my question was, does Tabor make you more efficient? And he looked at me, and after looking at his bosses, because he didn't know how to answer, he said yes. So from the CFO at that time, the simple statement to him, answer to me from him was, Tabor made us more efficient. And so that sold me then. It does now. There are some ratcheting issues that need to be adjusted. I got to stop.
Al, this question is directly for you. And the others can certainly answer as well. It's interesting. Where was President Barack Obama born?
Where was he born? I'm not his mama, so I don't know where. You better call his mom and ask him. I don't know where he was born. That's not my concern.
Oh, actually, we're now time for our closing arguments.
Okay.
I was trying to give you a little kick there.
I could tell you where Barack Obama was born. He was born in the same hospital my third daughter was born, Kapiolani Hospital in Honolulu.
Okay.
I thought you guys were going to kick out of that question.
I was going to say Barack Obama has a different mom.
All right, at this time I'll allow, for the sake of time, I have kept this thing on time as a respect for the candidates and more importantly, respect for you guys. Since Fox 21 News is on at 9, I want you to all be able to make it home and watch our 9 o'clock newscast. Why don't we start with closing statements, and Jill, we'll let you go first. Ladies first.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Again, my name's Jill Gabler, and I'm running for City Council because I believe we need collaborative leaders on our City Council who can move our city forward, help us to become a more welcoming city, because I believe if we can do that, business will come. And I would be remiss tonight if I didn't make mention that yes, SB 11 passed today, and civil unions are now the law of Colorado. And I think if Colorado Springs can embrace our gay community and celebrate with them this great day, then that will be a great step in the right direction for the city of Colorado Springs. And it will show the region that we are a thoughtful and kind and accepting city. And again, business will follow. Thank you.
Al?
When I first came to Colorado Springs, I came for one reason. That was to reach out to at-risk families. As a result of that, I started a family church, a drug and alcohol rehab program, and a sober living home. I've serviced over hundreds of individuals, perhaps thousands of families affected by the work that we do. I got involved in public education. I've started 2 schools, and I've been instrumental in bringing down GVCC to this community, which is a foreign language immersion school. And then I went into D11 school board. So this move into city council for me is a natural progression of my servant leadership into this community, because not only do I care at the lower rings of society where I've worked all these years and here for 17 years, but now I see a need to go to the higher rings to bring some integrity, some honesty, some collaboration, and some transparency to what seems to be lacking in our current process. My name is Al Loma. Please vote for me, District 5, Colorado Springs. Thank you.
Bernie?
It's been my privilege and honor to serve our city as a city council person for nearly 5 years. My wife's folks came here in 1952. I came in 62. Linda and I were married in 1965 in a church in District 5. Joined the Navy for 15 years in submarine service, came back to Colorado Springs in 1980 as an Air Force officer and retired from the Air Force and been working in a defense contractor ever since. Linda and I have lived in District 5 for 32 years. We've raised our 3 daughters in District 5. Linda's a Wasson graduate. Our daughters are Mitchell graduates. I would like to bring and continue my service to our city using the experience I've gained over the last 5 years. Learning how to work with people on city council, going through the change of government has given me a unique perspective on what the needs are for our city and how best to serve those needs. I'm very honored to be here this evening as a candidate for re-election in District 5. Bernie Herpin, please, I'd be honored to have your vote. Thank you.
All right, folks, before we go this evening, a big thank you to the Citizens Project, Stargazers. And before we go, I want to bring up Christy Milligan. She's the Executive Director of Citizens Project, so she can say a few things about tonight.
First and foremost, I want to thank you all. I know that we all have busy lives and a million places to be and 12-hour days, and I really appreciate your commitment to getting informed, to showing up in your community. I want to thank all the candidates who made the time to be here tonight, and I especially want to thank our incredible MC, Joe Cole, our wonderful, impeccable timekeeper, Jaynard Smith, and the Citizens Project board members and volunteers who are here tonight. Special thanks to Mel and Victoria, who were bullied into question collecting and staying all night. And just really, really want to honor you all for making this commitment to your civic education. Thanks so much.
All right, that does it. Have a great evening, everyone. Thanks for coming.